seductive, and elevatory. Welcome to the Department of Magical Mysteries.
Welcome.
Welcome. No, go. You do the intro.
All right. Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast. I'm Laura. It's Jamie.
Good job. Well done.
Try
Welcome
not
to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast, where we talk no BS fitness and nutrition.
Try not to live stream it this time.
I checked that, but did I? Yeah, I checked that. There was a button that was like Facebook live stream. So how are you?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Now everything's good. How are you?
Good. So when I dropped my daughter off at the bus stop, I know I already told you this, but I want to say it again because I feel like it's funny. When I dropped my daughter at the bus stop this morning, she goes to a middle school. So there's like middle schoolers and fifth graders. She's not in middle school. She's in fifth grade, but she's, at the bus stop with middle schoolers and fifth graders. And we chit-chatted a little bit. The bus wasn't there yet. And then I was like, all right, babe, I got to go because I got to go record this podcast. And she said, okay, that's fine. And the girls that she was standing with were like, oh, you have a podcast? And I was like, yeah, I have a podcast. So it felt kind of cool.
With so many listeners.
All the people.
There's so many people who listen to us.
So many.
Yeah.
Which we should do something soon to try to increase that.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that later.
Give stuff away.
Yeah. All right. What's going on? What you got for me today?
Well, I was thinking today as I was eating.
Thinking?
Yes, like I do.
That's new.
I know. That's what I do all day long. And while I was eating, because I also do that all day long, and I've been eating around like 2,300 calories. And I just always find it amazing that I can eat so much food for being such a small human. I eat a lot of food, and it kind of like, for my size, I shouldn't be able to eat that much. It should be more like 1,800 calories, not 2,300 calories. And my weight is maintaining, and I always expect it to go up when I'm eating this much food. But no, maintaining, and it feels good. But then I always have like times where I eat a little bit less so if you eat too much all the time, your gut I just get all, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's also funny that I have to like drop my calories so low to lose weight. But
I know, isn't that frustrating?
Yeah. It's like I can eat so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hard
but
to
it doesn't
lose,
actually, you see some people who it's like, oh, increase your calories and essentially increase your maintenance calories, push against that upper ceiling, right? So then when you eat at a deficit, you won't have to eat as much of a deficit. And that's partially true. Like I don't have to go down to like 1,100. Yeah. But in no realm of life am I eating 1,900 calories and losing. Like that's not happening.
No.
I still have to go to a 1,700 cycle at the minimum.
And that's what I was taught in like my nutrition cert and everything, to do that. Like that doesn't work. It doesn't work
for everybody.
Way. No.
Definitely doesn't work for everybody.
If you have a lot of weight to lose, I think it works better.
Yeah. And then people do respond differently to different things. And then I also very strongly believe that regardless of how many calories or how much food you need to take for most people to intake to actually lose weight, no matter how little they have to eat, having periods where you really push that ceiling, it still does make fat loss easier because it gives you a true break from worrying about that kind of cognitive restriction, so that when you're actually eating less, it's mentally easier to stick to.
Yeah. Sometimes harder because you're used to eating the more. That's what sometimes you put people into a cut and they're like, never mind, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But no, definitely. And just physically better, not always running on fumes.
Right. And the fat loss phase tends to work better. So you don't hit walls or plateaus as quickly because you haven't been doing this back and forth all the time with your body and your metabolism.
Yeah.
So still worthwhile to do it, but it can be frustrating when you're like, I still have to drop to like 1,500 calories.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, the adaptation phase to that is rough when you go from eating a
Yeah.
lot to like, I like to pull back a little slower because that first week I'm like, nope, I'm
Yeah.
eating disorder Jamie all over again.
Last time,
if I don't do it slow.
Last time I went down to 1,700 and my weight actually dropped, but it was probably just like water. And then I like slowly went down. Eventually I had to get down to like 1,300 calories. And
Ew, bar for Rama.
I know, done now.
It's a good conversation though. What are your aesthetic goals and what's your plan to meet those over the next 6 to 9 to 12 months?
So I definitely want to put on muscle this year. Like because I'm always focused on getting stronger. And I still want to up my deadlift. I want to get it to 300 pounds, but I only have 15 more pounds to go. So I can intermittently put that in there. So I can do right now we're working on quads, and then I can go to, something else, maybe shoulders. And I want to build my abs too. I never work on my abs enough. So, do little phases like that where I'm like focusing on one muscle at a time and obviously still working out everything else, but have a focus. And put on a lot
adding
of
like
muscle.
slabs of muscle in certain areas. I love it.
That way I don't have to be 123 pounds. But I'm also I'm going to try to not let my weight creep up too high so that when I do go into a cut, I don't have to cut as much. And then summertime, springtime, same thing. I'll go into a cut again and reveal all that muscle.
Reveal the slabs of muscle
and look like a bodybuilder.
When are you going to start your cut, and how long do you plan it to be?
It depends on what my weight is when I get there. I don't want it to be very long, so I think I don't. Normally, it always ends up being longer than I want it to be because it's just so hard to have the weight come off and I have to drop my calories so low. But I can usually drop the first 5 pounds pretty easy. So if I can make it where I only have 5, 6, 7 pounds to lose, that would be nice. So I don't want my weight to creep up too high. And then I only want to be in a cut for 8 weeks or something.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for me, because you asked, I know you were going to.
Yeah. Of course I was.
I definitely want to lose body fat. Like I'm in a position right now, transparently, where I logically feel like I look good. Like I look in the mirror and I'm happy with what I see, but I'm doing that thing where I look at old pictures of myself and I'm like, God damn. And I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about I had kids. So no excuses. And my daughter even said, oh, I wanted to slap her, but no, not really, because I love you. And I thought my response was good. But she was looking at an old picture and this is before I had kids, so I'll say that. It was a picture from our honeymoon. And I was not in a good place mentally. I was doing, in terms of fitness and nutrition, I wasn't in a good place mentally. I was doing Insanity, and we were trying to get really, really lean for our honeymoon and all that stuff. And I wasn't strength training. I was just doing all high intensity cardio, Insanity, 6 days a week. And so I was very skinny. I wouldn't even say I was lean, because lean implies you have muscle. I was skinny. And she was looking at a picture. She goes, Mommy, your stomach looks so different. I was like, yeah, I know, it does. And she was like, does it look different? Why does it look different now? And then she went, oh, I know, because you had us and your belly kind of stretched out, right? And my honest response, I was like, no, that's not why at all. I was like, I just have more body fat now. She was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of talking to kids more practically about things and not in a negative way. She also sees me, talk positive about myself. But anyway, I don't want to look like that necessarily, but I am all right, I definitely want to cut down body fat, but I don't want to do it right now because it's September. It's not the time. I really want to focus on the goals I have in the gym, growing my quads. I don't want to be getting any quad strains, which, by the way, tell me how that's going after I'm done talking.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely don't want any quad strains.
No.
Do you still have it?
I worked out today.
And it was fine?
And I got to my last set and it started to bother me. So I stopped. But I was able to get through almost the whole workout. So it's better. Was
it the hardest workout in the beginning?
Nope, because I missed 2 workouts last week because of that and because I was sick. So I started with upper body this week. So today was the 3rd lower body, the optional one. I figured I'd start with that because it was probably easier than number one. And
Yeah.
I was scared the entire workout. Like I was nervous to do things because it hurt so bad last time. So like I don't want to make it worse.
Yeah.
So every time I squat down into something, I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I don't
I
want to
might
do
as
that.
well deadlift 300 pounds. That's safer than doing.
Right.
Like, I always get hurt doing stupid things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want that, but obviously you're eating enough. But anyway, I want to put energy to my workouts. I want to focus on right now. I want to focus on that. I want to focus on building a little bit of muscle in certain areas. I want to focus on increasing my pull-ups. So I'm doing that as well. And I want to focus on all the activity that I'm doing the Taekwondo 3 days a week and training 3 days a week. So it's a lot. And then I want to go into a cut. And I don't think I've done the whole, okay, let's try to speed this up and only do it, 6 weeks long, or only do it and try to get out of it faster. But I cannot, and I don't want to stick to those really low calories. So I think I'm going to intentionally be gradual with it and plan to sit in it longer
Yeah. Yeah.
and
We're
start
different.
relatively early. Yeah. I mean,
We're
I go through
different
my
that way.
phases. Give me a month and I might say the complete opposite, but I think that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I like getting it over with because I just hate, like, okay, I'm in it for like 4 months now. Like, I don't want to be in a cut that long. It's just stupid.
Yeah,
So,
but if I can sit in it, so if I'm logically thinking about, because I've done this lots of times, I've gone through lots of fat loss phases, right? I've done it all different kinds of ways.
mhm.
And if I do it in like 6 weeks, I have to bring my calories really low, really quickly. And there's not really a lot of room for any error. So eating over calories like one night, or yeah, it's probably fine, but it just delays everything. And if I go in with this mindset of like get it over quick, then my expectations tend to be higher. And then it just triggers. I have so many triggers that I don't remember are there until I'm in that restriction phase. And all these triggers start to come up. And I get into a really bad place. Whereas if I can sit a little longer in something, a little more gradual, and maybe have more times where I'm off track, but then get right back on, more times where we go out to eat or blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's worked better for me mentally in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not
That's fine.
4 months, maybe like 3.
Yeah. 3 months is okay.
That's 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also feel like the beginning is really hard to adapt to. Like it takes me a good 3 to 4 weeks to adapt to a fat loss phase.
Mhm.
But once I'm adapted, I feel like I could sit there for a while. We've talked about how like then we'll eat like 1,800 calories and be stuffed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
But
feel like I can maybe stay for a while.
yeah. But most of the time, once you get there where it's like, oh, this isn't so bad, you're not actually like you're in it. You're still in a deficit. It's just much smaller. That's why it's easier to eat the lower calories.
Yeah, well, we'll see. That's my plan
Yeah.
right now, today, Wednesday, September 25th.
Yeah.
Ask me tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna focus right now on just building muscle, and then I'll worry about losing the fat later. But I think I might even do like a little mini cut soon, just to, like for a week, and I'm just gonna keep putting those in periodically, and I
Just
think that
defluff.
yeah, and I think that works better. I just like that better than having to
Cool.
do it all at once. It's just hard, like you said, it's hard to do that, like go into that. So doing that for a week, it's like and I don't need to. So it's like
Yeah.
I'll start it and then be like, no, I don't want to do this. No, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week.
Yeah, never mind.
So,
Hunger sucks. Screw that.
there's no
Hey,
reason.
what do you think about people wanting to do fat loss right now? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that want to do fat loss right now because they get out of summer, and summer's kind of been all over the place. Maybe you went into summer feeling good, but then with all the barbecues and vacations and eating out,
Mhm.
and then you see the holidays coming. So a lot of people they go into like mini panic right now. I feel like this is mini panic zone.
I mean it's up to them what they want to do. If they want to, sure. If they feel like they can actually make progress doing that, I mean sometimes all you need to do is do like a little mini one for like 2 weeks and then go back into eating normal.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that
Yeah,
works.
for sure. Just to feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
I usually recommend that people don't. Certain scenarios, yeah. If you're a little bit more advanced, you know your body, you know the process, you all of that stuff, then make your own decisions and it's fine. But for a lot of people who don't actually know their bodies as well, or don't actually know the process as well, I think that leaning into that mini panic now can sometimes snowball you into the same cycle that we're always in. So the idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose fat now, and they'll do it. But then by the time the holidays hit, they fall off. But then as soon as the holidays are over, they feel the same way. So they go back to it. And then we're back in this yo-yo. And then by the time summer hits, we're panicking again. And instead of like really setting, and we've never actually spent the time like really building muscle or eating at higher calories. So I usually recommend people try to, like you said, maybe like a mini cut to feel a little better, but don't go in trying to lose 10 pounds right now if that's all you have to lose. If you have a lot more to lose, it's a different story. You might need a longer runway for that.
Yeah. I know I've talked to you about this before. What I love about strength training is you can be at so many different calories and make progress, especially if you're, focusing on getting your protein in too. You could be at really low calories and you are losing fat and maintaining your muscle. If you are at like semi low calories, like a small deficit, but you have a lot of weight to lose, you could be losing fat and putting on muscle at the same time. If you're at maintenance, you could be losing fat, putting muscle at the same time. If you eat a little extra, some of those calories will go towards building muscle. So you can have like this wide range of calories and just freaking eat whatever you want and make progress if you're strength training and eating protein.
That's so true. You'll make progress in some way. So it's not totally wasted.
Yeah. So like, even if you feel like, I haven't been hitting my calories or whatever, as long as you're not eating cookies for those extra 500 calories, which I think is usually the problem, you're fine.
So what if I am eating only cookies for those extra 500 calories?
Then you need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah. You might still gain some more muscle, but you're also going to gain more body fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Most likely.
What about creatine though?
Creatine. Your transitions are awful.
That's a really terrible transition.
You're the worst at transition.
Well, the transition in my brain made sense because I wasn't actually going to bring up creatine yet, but we were just chatting in general about like gaining fat or eating too many cookies. And I was thinking the general concept like, oh, it's funny that, people eat a bunch of cookies and then, you gain body fat. That makes sense. But they're scared to take creatine because they might retain water and gain weight.
Or they'll like, okay, sorry. I was sort of listening and then I didn't listen to everything you said. So.
This is going so well.
She was talking about creatine and then my brain goes over here. And then I mean, you do retain water in your muscles when you take it. So that will happen. I don't remember if I gained weight or not when I took creatine. I didn't notice anything. But if you do gain weight, water weight, it'll actually look good because it's in your muscles.
Because it fills out your muscles.
It fills out your muscles. Yeah.
Yeah. So with creatine monohydrate, each creatine molecule comes with like a molecule of water. So you're literally holding onto more water inside your muscles. That's where creatine is stored. So it makes you it makes you retain intracellular water, but a little bit. And like you said, I've never actually noticed my scale weight change in response to me being consistent with creatine or not. I've never actually noticed it. And your weight is shifting every day anyway, a pound up, 2 pounds down, 3 pounds up, 1 pound down. So I've never been able to differentiate those normal fluctuations and like being on creatine. So it's just something that not only should you not worry about because it's probably not going to be noticeable anyway, but number two, it's not body fat and it levels out. If you do notice like a 1 to 3 pound increase on the scale, it's going to stop at that point unless you're overeating calories and you're gaining weight.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like this consistent thing.
The same thing happens when you eat carbs.
Exactly.
When your muscles store the carbs, they store water with the carbs. So same thing happens.
That's why when you stop eating carbs, you notice a big decrease on the scale for the
Yeah,
first
that's what I was going to say. Like, that's when people do keto and they're like, I lost 10 pounds the first week. No, you didn't.
Like you did, but you didn't.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked that though recently when on that thread that I posted on Facebook of questions that you have for the podcast. Somebody posted creatine, why it makes you retain water. So we just said why it makes you retain water. And is it helpful for weightlifting?
Yes. It gives you energy to do your sets and everything.
Yes. And it's not an energy that, this is another misconception people have. It's not that you take creatine on Monday and your workout on Monday has energy. And on Tuesday, you forget to take creatine and therefore your workout is not going to have energy. Creatine is a molecule that helps restore ATP, which is a pathway of energy in your body. So it's something that has a cumulative effect, right? So you need to be focusing on having it more as like a daily supplement so that your muscles have enough creatine to be able to contribute to that process of regenerating ATP. But it's not something that works like a stimulant. It's something that's definitely more gradual, and you need to be consistent with it. So people will ask, oh, should I take it on non-training days? Absolutely. In fact, if you don't take it on non-training days, then you're not doing it correctly and you're not going to be able to have all of the benefits that supplementing with creatine is going to give you.
It's like your stored energy and stuff. It's not the same as like a stimulant. How does the stimulant even work? Like, how does that actually give you energy? Do you know?
Well, a lot of it's caffeine.
Yeah, but like, what does the caffeine do?
Stimulates all of your systems.
Okay.
Stimulants.
Like, I have to look that up. Like, how does it actually work? What does it do?
Oh, it's a good question. Scientifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. We should get some info on that.
Find that answer, because I never really thought about it until now, because it is a different energy pathway.
It's more of like a superficial energy.
Yeah.
Those energy supplements and stuff like that is more like a superficial energy. This is like deeper energy.
This is more like the like that. That's just like the energy. It's the energy that you use normally when you're doing things. So it's just replenishing it. You're able to replenish it faster and have it.
Yeah, it's like stimulants and stuff like that will cause you to go beyond maybe what your body actually wants to do. Like if you have enough stimulants and stuff in you, you could actually push yourself beyond the point that your body wants to, right? It can contribute to overtraining and stuff like that because you're just constantly superficially stimulating yourself. Whereas creatine, like you said, it helps restore a natural energy pathway so that you are able to do what your body is capable, the higher end of what your body is actually capable of doing. Helps you reach that top. It might increase what you're able to do by like 3 to 5%, which sounds really, really small, but 3 to 5% might equate to like one more rep or putting 5 more pounds on the bar. And that one more rep or 5 more pounds on the bar is going to go in obviously to the bucket of progressive overload, which is going to help you build that strength and muscle a little bit more than you were doing before.
Yeah. And it'll accumulate over time. If you're able to do that one extra rep, that's going to, it's going to compound over time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So creatine, yeah, absolutely. Helpful for weight training.
I had another topic. So I'm going to talk about myself. It's hard. So I'm going to relate it to business and maybe sports. I feel like business, sports, fitness, there's so many like analogies and there's so many parallels between all of them that relate to life in general. And there's just so much good stuff with all of those. So anyway, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I just started my own business. I used to work for Jamie, but now I'm on my own and I'm basically starting from scratch. I have the experience and knowledge, but the business itself, I'm starting from scratch. So I have no following, nothing on social media because I never posted, because we've talked about this, like in the scrunch butt leggings, times that I don't very introverted, and I'm not like, look at me, whatever. So I don't like posting all the time. But I've had to post more often now, obviously, and make reels and do all these things. And I have a horrible fear of failure. It's like something I definitely need to work on. And I know a lot of people have that fear. I hate making mistakes. I hate looking stupid. If I make mistakes, it haunts me forever and bothers me. And so putting out things like that can be challenging if you're like expecting it to do really well, right? So instead, I've been going into it and thinking of it as practice. So every time I put out a reel, it's like practice. I'm getting better at making them, and then I'm getting better in front of the camera. I'm also like analyzing them afterwards and looking at it as data. So it's like, okay, this one did well, this one didn't. Why did these ones do better than these ones, and that stuff. So over time, I'll get better at them, right? So I'm not just like throwing stuff out there and seeing what will kind of in the beginning, but then figuring out what does well and why, and try to get better over time, and also learn from mistakes.
So like not telling people to watch till the end.
Yeah. So last week I put out a reel where I was talking about I acted like I was really angry, and that this friend backstabbed me and whatever, and I was really mad at her. And then I got to the end, and I was like, and when I woke up, I was really mad at her or something I said. So obviously it was a dream, right? But not everybody got to the end. So I had my sister-in-law message me. She's like, okay, who do I need to punch? Like, oh, everyone thinks I'm on social media like venting or something, which is not something I would do.
So your style too.
Oh yeah. So it like made me
take
very
this
like
to social media.
So it bothered me. The next day I was like, should I delete this? Like it was like really bothering me because I didn't want people to think that that's what I do, right? And I'm like, I should have put wait for it at the top. But it's okay that I made that mistake, because now I know next time I'm going to put wait for it at the top. And next time I do something like that, I'm probably going to have a bigger audience where it's going to matter more anyway. So make the mistakes now and then learn from them so that you can get better later. And I feel like this is what people need to do with fitness and nutrition, because they'll do things like, all right, I binged over the weekend. I'm a failure. I'm a screw up. I whatever. And instead of looking at it that way, look at it as practice in data and say, okay, why did I binge this weekend? Like what did I do? Did I not eat enough during the week? Did I not plan ahead? Figure out the reason why, and then try to learn from that and do better next time. And don't just say like, because sometimes people are like, I just need to do better. I need more willpower. I need this. And most of the time that's not what it is. You need to figure out what's causing you to do that in the first place. So for example, I work out in the morning because that's when I'm most consistent. And I also usually work out Monday through Friday. If I'm doing like if I'm working out 5 days, I do it Monday through Friday, even though it makes more sense. Like it's probably more optimal to have a day off in between, like maybe take Wednesday off and then move things out. I schedule it Monday through Friday because I know that I'm going to be more consistent Monday through Friday, because on the weekends I sleep in a little bit and then I like mosey around. Like I'm just not in the same place as I am during the week. And if I always scheduled it on Saturday and I didn't get my workout in, and I always feel like a failure because I always miss that workout, instead just, learn from that and figure out how to make it easier for yourself and move it over,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's such a good analogy. And I think there's a lot of things that like about business that definitely relate to like nutrition and fitness for people. And I couldn't agree more, because it's like it would be, I guess, the equivalent of you posting on social media thinking that that's going to get you like 10 clients.
Yeah.
And like a few $1,000s, and then being so mad when you didn't get any.
Yeah.
And then you learned nothing because you were just annoyed and pissed that it didn't work. And then it's just like throwing spaghetti at a wall, but like without any purpose, which throwing spaghetti at a wall is purposeless. So it is like throwing spaghetti at a wall. You're not throwing spaghetti at a wall. If you change the way that you perceive it,
Yeah.
And like you said, practice.
Yeah. And if
you're more likely to do better long term.
Yeah. And if you look at it as practice, if you're afraid of failure, like you can't fail when you're practicing. It's practice. And it takes that pressure off.
Yeah. And kind of like what I said, your goal isn't, I mean, and it would be nice to have 20 clients by tomorrow, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to have 20 clients in like a year. Yeah. So, and fudge that number as much as you want. But the point is you're looking at it as like, where do I want to be a year from now? I want to be sustainably successful, right? And looking at it as, how am I going to get 20 clients tomorrow? Will put you in the position, because I've been there. I've been there. It will put you, if you're looking for 20 clients tomorrow, or my next client tomorrow, my next $1,000 tomorrow, if you're in that situation, then you're going to look back a year later and you will have been doing that same crap every single day unsuccessfully. And that's what people do in training and nutrition. They're thinking, I need to lose 5 pounds in 3 weeks, or I need to do these 10 pounds, or I need to get my act together. And then all of a sudden they look up 1 year, 5 year, 10 years later, they've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. Yeah. And only when you can get out of that and say, you know what, screw those 5 pounds. I want to be a different person a year from now. I want to be out of this. What do I need to do to get out of this a year from now? And what do I need to practice and start putting in place? Exactly like you said.
And adapting, and yeah.
Yep. And at that viewpoint, it totally transforms the way you go about everything. It makes you enjoy the process more. Yeah. It makes you more successful. It helps you actually get better at what you're putting out.
I'm enjoying making these videos because there's no pressure. It's like I don't expect them to perform very well. It's kind of just fun to do it.
Yep.
And if
and with like you're binging, my head's binging with all these analogies, because the same thing with if you're attacking it as I need to lose 5 pounds, I feel fat, all this stuff, the workout you're going to do is probably going to be not very effective long-term. It's going to be, cardio, lots of sweat, whatever. Yeah. Whereas if you're thinking a year, what do I actually want? Well, I want to be able to like see some muscle definition. I want to be able to like maintain a relatively lean and healthy body and eat what I want. What do I need to do? Oh, I need to strength train. Oh, I need to, because everybody knows you go in for that strength training workout on day 1. Heck, even on day 100, you're not necessarily, sometimes you're walking out dripping in sweat, but not necessarily all the time. It's a matter of working smarter and not harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And growing. Yeah.
Yep.
Another analogy is with sports. So the Giants is my team, and they're not very good, right? And the first 2 games, they were terrible. And they have a new defensive coordinator, and he never blitzes. And the old defensive coordinator used to blitz all the time. And I expected.
What does blitz mean?
So a blitz is like, normally you rush 4 people at the quarterback. A blitz would be where you have extra people come in and pressure the quarterback, so that you're more likely to get a sack or pressure him so he doesn't have a lot of time to throw the ball. And I like that type of defense. I like putting pressure on the quarterback. If you just let him sit there, he's going to find someone open and he's going to throw to them. So this defensive coordinator was not blitzing at all. And this week he changed it. And he started blitzing, and look they won. Because he adapted and he changed, and he said, okay, what this wasn't working. We need to figure out how to make this work better. And the defense looked, at least the first half, because then after that he stopped blitzing again. But the first half, like, they looked phenomenal because they were doing that, and they had like 8 sacks or something that game. So that was the one thing I was going to say. The other is, like, if you make mistakes, it doesn't mean you're failing either. So just because a sports team loses a game, they don't go, oh my God, we're failures. Oh my God, we lost a game, we're a failure. And They just try to learn from it and adapt and do better next time.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yep. For all those football people out there. Yeah. I'm sure there's no Giants fans listening, but
Well, you looked like a Giants player in your last reel.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it. Her that one was Instagram fun. Is in the show notes. That was fun. All right. I have a couple questions. You want to get into them?
Yeah.
Are you in a place to talk about electrolytes?
You need to give me these ahead of time so I can like do like
I
what's the
texted you.
question? Yeah, like
2 seconds before.
Yeah, what what is the question about electrolytes?
The person said they want us to talk about the new controversy about electrolytes. I've been floating in the space a couple years and it was always recommended. Now people are starting to say no, not unless you're an endurance athlete. I still take them once a day with my creatine as I always have. I've been doing some research on this, so I have an opinion.
I mean, I feel like if you are somebody who eats a lot of processed food, then maybe you don't need electrolytes because you're probably getting a lot of sodium anyway. And a lot of the electrolytes have, a decent amount of sodium in them. So if you are, eating a lot of processed food, you're probably already getting plenty of salt and you might be overdoing it by adding more salt in. If you're somebody who doesn't, eat, like I don't eat a lot of processed food. I don't get a ton of salt from my food. Having electrolytes does help me. And I actually notice it in my workout, like, make a difference. So, and if you sweat a lot or you're, it's summertime, you might need it a little bit more. I would say play around with it. And if you notice a difference, then cool. If you don't, then maybe you don't need them.
Yeah. I agree. My thoughts go deeper.
Mm-hmm. I didn't do research.
Yeah, that's okay. It's been something that's kind of been on my mind in general. Like I've been floating with this because, and one of the reasons it's been on my mind is because I see all of these electrolyte companies getting really big, but also all of these, coaches and influencers and people in the space that have affiliate codes for like LMNT right now is a big one. And it's just, it seems to be like everybody's drinking electrolytes all the time. And I've been getting text messages from family members that are like, what's the best electrolytes? And it's like, oh my goodness, like everybody's talking about electrolytes. And I feel like it's basically trending right now. And I think that these companies are kind of tapping into different, like modern health and lifestyle movement right now is like a thing. Fitness and nutrition and wellness, and also like hydration optimization is like a thing right now. And I feel like these companies are kind of like tapping into that. But the question is, it's two questions. Do people really need, does everybody and their mother really need electrolytes every day? And the second question is, if you're not
working out, I'm going to say no. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. If you're not working out and you're not sick or projectile vomiting or like walking around New York City on a 90-degree day, then you probably don't need them every day.
No.
But also what I'm starting to notice as I'm like, because I've done research on electrolytes in order to find a brand that I would recommend, because similar with creatine, people are always asking, well, what should I get for creatine? And so I'm having to, okay, well, let me see what I actually recommend so I can make sure that what I'm recommending is the right one, because my old recommendation has always been like, I don't know, go to Amazon and find something that's like a decent price. I don't know. And with creatine, I feel like that's a little easier to do because creatine's creatine unless you get it blended with something. But electrolytes, you get all these different amounts. And it's generally speaking, it's sodium is one of them. Potassium and calcium and magnesium are the main ones that you'll find in these electrolyte mixes. And there's other electrolytes in general, but these are the ones that you will find in electrolyte mixes. And the one that you need to be concerned about is sodium, because not only is sodium obviously something we want to regulate for blood pressure and cardiovascular health, et cetera, but all of the other ones, specifically potassium, calcium, magnesium, they tend to be in very similar amounts across different brands, whereas sodium tends to vary between different brands. So let me give you a couple examples. This brand that I use, so I like a brand called Key Nutrients, and I find it on Amazon. And the reason I picked it is because it has, in my mind, a very moderate sodium amount, and it has a pretty good amount of potassium, calcium, and magnesium as well. So I looked up the numbers. I felt like those were good amounts. Some brands that you'll find have ridiculously low potassium or like non-existent magnesium. So I wanted one that had all of them in a decent amount. But the sodium in the one that I have, Key Nutrients on Amazon, I also wanted one that I didn't have those individual packets because I just prefer to have like a tub of powder, and it has a bunch of different flavors and I like them, etc. But the sodium in the one that I get is 110 milligrams. So these numbers are important. Pay attention to the numbers. The sodium in the one that I get is 110 milligrams. The recommended sodium dose for people in general, and not necessarily active people, but just people, is somewhere in the nature of 1,500 milligrams to 2,300 milligrams per day. Obviously, the upper level of that, the more active you are. So 1,500 to 2,300 per day. The brand that I use is 110 milligrams per day. So even for somebody who's not active, that feels like a fairly safe amount, especially if you're not eating a lot of processed foods, right? So the issues with sodium start to come up really because of people eating a lot of processed food, a lot of packaged food. So our sodium levels are really high. So a lot of times somebody who is recommended to go on a lower sodium diet doesn't necessarily need to stop putting table salt in their food. It's more so about eating more whole foods. So when we're looking at like a fitness and nutrition community, as most people listening are, that is going to be 110 milligrams is going to be a very modest amount considering the amount of sodium they're already getting is likely in that range already. But if you look at a brand like Liquid IV, now I like Liquid IV. This is the one that's sold in Costco. I feel like the marketing around Liquid IV is less about active people and like fitness and nutrition, and it's more kind of geared towards people who maybe have been drinking a lot late at night or maybe are going on long hikes, etc. But it seems to be a little less geared towards the fitness and nutrition community. Liquid IV has 500 milligrams of sodium. Now, that's a lot more than the one I'm using, right? But I'm not saying that 110 milligrams is the amount you should be looking for, but 500 is clearly a lot more and can still be fine for somebody to use daily if they're not getting a lot of salt in their natural diet. But then you look at a brand, and I like this brand, and it's a fairly good one, but you see a lot of fitness and nutrition coaches have like affiliate links and et cetera for a brand called LMNT. And LMNT has very delicious flavors. It's fairly pricey. You pay a pretty penny for these flavors, but there's not like chemical aftertaste or anything like that. So it's a highly recommended brand. The amount of sodium in a serving of LMNT is 1,000 milligrams. 1,000 milligrams of sodium for an average person who's not sweating a lot, who's maybe strength training a few times a week in an air-conditioned gym, barely sweating, is going to be a ridiculous amount of sodium, especially if they're already getting sodium in their food. So this is what I normally recommend when it comes to like electrolytes and sodium. So for somebody who's in the fitness and nutrition space, who's probably already used to maybe tracking, I would suggest actually looking at your sodium numbers throughout the day. Now, go ahead and estimate the amount of salt that you are like maybe sprinkling on your food or putting into recipes. So I did this the other day where I went to put some salt on my food, and I actually measured out about how much salt I would normally do. And it was somewhere in the nature of like 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon. And I would literally add this into my MyFitnessPal while I was tracking. And I noticed that I got around 2,000 milligrams of sodium naturally in my day. And I eat almost completely whole foods diet, but I do use a lot of salt in my food and in my cooking. So if I am averaging around 2,000 milligrams a day, then a Key Nutrients, the brand that I use, Electrolytes of 110 milligrams of sodium, is not a big add, right? And I like to use that daily in my workouts because it tastes good. It has the other nutrients in it that I want. It's kind of like a multivitamin. It's got some other nutrients in there as well. It's got a decent ratio of potassium to sodium, and a potassium to sodium ratio is actually relatively important. So I do like taking it daily, but the 110 milligrams does not impact me. Now, on days where I'm going to be sweating more, so I strength train 3 to 4 days a week, very intense, but I don't sweat like buckets of sweat. I'm in my air conditioned home. So it is not an extreme situation. When I go to Taekwondo and I'm still in an air conditioned space, but it's much warmer than my home and I'm sweating a lot, I will add actually a sprinkle of salt into my drink. And I put my creatine in there as well. So it's easy to get my creatine in that way. I add a little sprinkle of salt. So essentially I'm increasing the sodium on my own, and I don't have to pay somebody else, right, to do that. So I'm not using a, brand like LMNT where I'm essentially paying them for hundreds of milligrams more of sodium. I can just add it in myself. So for me, this works out really well. I also have Liquid IV. So if I'm in situations where I'm going to be out all day walking around and it's going to be very hot, or I'm going to be very sweaty for multiple hours and I'm losing a lot of sodium, I have no problem drinking something with higher sodium, like 500 milligram Liquid IV. I don't currently use LMNT. For me, there's no reason for me to be drinking 1,000 milligrams of sodium in my electrolytes. And for most people, they're not going to need that. Now, if you go on LMNT's website, and again, I like this brand. I think they're a great brand, and they do have very transparent there's a lot of transparency on their website when it comes to why they use the amount of sodium that they use. They have you can go look that up right now if you want to. And they talk about people who are living in very hot climates, people who are spending a lot of time outdoors, maybe doing endurance activities and sweating in these climates. And also they market to people who do keto or fasting or essentially very low carb eating, which is also going to contribute to lower levels of sodium and electrolytes. So for them, that makes sense. However, the marketing around that product currently is the everyday average lifter is out there putting LMNT packets in their water bottle, going to their air-conditioned gym, like I said before. And that's not only not necessary, but it could be very dangerous because high blood pressure has been marked the silent killer. And that's because there really aren't any signs or symptoms until it's already too late. And that is something that as Americans in general, we need to avoid. And yes, it is linked to people who are eating very high sodium diets because of fast food and highly processed food. But now in this shift of health and hydration kind of marketing to the average fitness person, I'm afraid that we might actually see these blood pressure issues, linked to high sodium kind of in this space as well. And so I think it's important for the consumer to pay attention essentially to the amount of sodium that they're drinking in electrolytes. So it's not electrolytes as a whole, it's the sodium content that I would be more concerned about. So again, back to my recommendation, I would recommend that you actually look at how much sodium you're getting in a day. Try to track. Of course, you're not going to get super, super accurate, but try to track and see how much sodium you're already getting and look at your electrolyte drink and add in those milligrams and see kind of where you're at. If you're drinking an electrolyte drink that is a little bit lower levels of sodium, then it's probably fine. If you're drinking an electrolyte drink that has high levels of sodium, we might want to reconsider how often you're taking that. Now, I know that Laura uses LMNT. She loves the after. She doesn't have an aftertaste. That's what she loves about it. She's very sensitive to like that fake sugar taste in other electrolyte powders, and that's one of the benefits of LMNT. But she is aware that there's 1,000 milligrams of sodium in LMNT and that she doesn't need that. So she only uses a third of a packet, and she does use it every day, but a third of a packet for her, considering she eats a whole food diet almost exclusively, is a fine amount of sodium and puts her in the range of healthy. Thanks for listening. Deadlifts and Pizza. See you next week. Bye.